How's it going, everybody? This topic today is a little bit more abstract than usual. A lot of terms that we're going to look at are highly subjective, and some of them really aren't, but they're influenced by one's own preference. Something that you usually associate in a positive manner can have negative connotations attached to it. As you've already seen in the title, we're going to talk about skillful play and whether it is fun to watch. This is not something strictly related to For Honor. Every game and even every single sport faces this issue. What is entertaining to watch? That is the big question. And I think this is currently very relevant as we have the Dominion series going on and the first 4 open qualifiers, both for Europe as well as North America, have concluded. So we're moving on to the closed qualifiers, which should mean a high quality of games, and this is going to be the first one that will have an official stream and official casting. We don't know yet who is casting and how the whole thing is going to be set up, but I'm really curious what they're going to do and if they're trying to appeal to a wider audience, because official streams obviously always garner more attention. Which brings me to the big question. What does a community/viewers consider as entertaining? And just like I said in the beginning, this is highly subjective. Not everyone is entertained by the same thing. And the next sub-question, so to speak, is skillful, aka tournament level play, entertaining to watch? The answers for Honor might go completely the opposite way when comparing it to other games or normal sports. The highest level of play should in theory be the most exciting, most entertaining, most whatever, sphincter clenching, I don't know, man. But that's not always the case, and For Honor is a prime example of this. Most of our content creators do not fall into the bracket of quote-unquote best players. There is not a single YouTuber, and very few of them stream on Twitch. Regularly, that is. So, does this point towards the fact that the highest level play in For Honor is just not entertaining to watch? And if yes, what are the reasons for it? Fighting games in general have the problem that they are not that easy to follow. Realizing all the nuances in their play and being able to follow everything is no easy task. You actually need to be familiar with lots of extra information about the game, something that's not necessarily easy to acquire and also takes a lot of time. Time that not everyone is willing to invest, which is obviously completely fine. If you've ever seen a clip of a tournament from a fighting game that you personally do not play, the reaction is usually the following. Dude, that's hype as fuck, but I have no fucking clue what just happened. And the keyword here is hype. Hype alone might not be enough to make someone watch a tournament that lasts multiple hours, but it can sometimes captivate someone long enough that they decide to maybe take a closer look at the game. And then the next time a tournament comes around, they might be a lot more invested. Other games that are a lot simpler for a viewer, like most MOBAs for example, do not face this issue all that much. I don't need to be familiar with jungle path in League of Legends to get excited when a gank happens or someone is getting outplayed in an outnumbered fight. In fighting games, this is different as the fights themselves can be quite complicated, and really hype outplays come from small tiny details that require lots of explaining, so a commentator that just mindlessly yells will probably fail in conveying all that information. And for a viewer, this fight seems the same as in their own games, and they don't understand what exactly was the hype part. That is also the reason why not top level content might be a lot more entertaining for viewers. A big 1v3 in matchmaking against some bottom feeders happens a lot more often than in a tournament game among the best players. Yes, those matches also have outplays, but not nearly as frequently. It's like someone posting League of Legends gameplay from Silver ELO and trying to make themselves look good. Context is obviously very important here. Are these outplays still entertaining? Well, definitely, they can be massively entertaining, as we can see by the view numbers in many games. People like that sort of stuff, and providing them with this sort of content is only natural. It's to be expected that this niche gets filled, and the easier it is to produce that content, the better. The question is whether this is actually more entertaining than the top level play, and what can be done to make the highest level of gameplay equally entertaining. Is it just a lack of understanding of game mechanics? Is it a problem of how those games are presented, aka do casters need to step up their game? Or is it the stigma from the past? Especially in For Honor, the statement that high level For Honor is boring is one that has been parroted for a long time. Maybe even by players that have never watched top-level play. They just heard it from their friends, and that's what they believed in. And this obviously doesn't come from nowhere. The Hero series in Season 3 plays a major role when it comes to the stigma of competitive play. News articles about Alan Atkins stealing millions of dollars by using unlock tech, buying a castle and now ruling the country. This Nobu boogeyman still haunts the game until this day. Granted, the game was in a much different state. Attacks were much slower and even more reactable than what we had just a year ago. So some things that were considered issues, like the aforementioned unlock tech, like the 200 MS stampede charge startup from Raider, these issues actually made these matches somewhat bearable to watch. Because without them, we would have looked at massive starefests, PKs non-stop backdodging and only attacking so that they wouldn't be disqualified. Just to remind you, this tournament had basically a rule that you were required to attack at least once every 30, 40 seconds, pretty much an anti-stalling rule. Attacking was so unfavorable that a rule was implemented that forced players to not just stall it out. On top of that, during the whole Hero series, Ubisoft introduced 2 big patches that wildly changed the meta back then. Whether this was with the intention to make it more enjoyable for viewers or just wild attempts at fixes, it's been too long. At this point, we'd have to ask long-term Ubisoft employees that were around back then. Which brings me to the next question then. What is considered skillful play? We've only looked at it from the perspective of what's entertaining so far. But this goes even further, because even if something is applied and used at the very highest level, a lot of players consider it as not skillful. Like the unlock tech from back then, it was labeled as cheating and cheap tactics. It was looked at as a negative thing, despite its effectiveness. And this is exactly what I was talking about in the intro. Skillful has become something subjective. Players have made up their own mind about what they consider to be skillful play. Seeing someone deflect 5 attacks in a row is considered skillful by some, yet others see an idiot that threw out 5 completely predictable attacks. But on the other hand, another example from the Hero series back then, the unlock-relock backpedaling. It was effective, but I doubt anyone would call it skillful, nor was it entertaining to watch, not even a little bit. So we have this huge disparity between the perception of players. In other games you'd say, yeah, I want to be able to do this as well. Here in For Honor it's the opposite. I'd never stoop so low to employ these kind of moves, they're just spamming. And I'm honestly curious what a lot of you think here. What do you consider as skillful play? Is it important who that person is fighting, or is it just about the outcome? Is it more impressive when an anti-gank happens against really good players, or is it enough that one happened, even if it was against absolute monkeys? And most importantly, what could For Honor do to rectify some of these things? Because I personally think that it is an absolute outlier, and not many games have such a disconnect within their player base. Or is it just way too late at this point? What do you think would get the average For Honor player to start watching tournament level play instead of deflect montages? Well, I hope the video got you thinking a little. Thanks for watching. Laters, everybody.
Go away.
Yeah,
Mortimer, you'll be my distraction.
Oh yes, stay there.
See you, retard.
I guess crashing charges the least
I
racist
told you
move
I'd
in the
kill
game.
somebody with
Doesn't
crash.
control it.